The folks at Byron Seeds believe organic requires a different perspective, plan, and approach. Organic isn't simply a different type of product or even a different way of farming. It's a different way of thinking, planning, commitment. It's a different philosophy on how to feed the world. Many won't understand, but the people at Byron Seeds do. We're owned by organic dairy farmers. We not only have the product, but we plan, manage, and execute organic. We speak your language, we share your struggles, and we laud your successes. Organic isn't a way of doing business, it's a community. We learn from each other. We're in this together. We'd be glad to talk cropping plans, management systems, the road to profitability. We understand what you're trying to do. We're farmers just like you. Visit us at byronseeds.net or give us a call at 800-801-3596. And thanks to Byron Seeds. Plan to add Soil Biotics organic products to your 2024 crop program. Soil Boost is a raw humate product that is broadcast applied pre-plant to help improve soil structure, maintain nutrient availability, and stimulate microbial activity. Soil Biotics PHK is a dry granular humate product using a proprietary carrier blend. It enhances the uptake of nutrients, increases water holding capacity, and enhances soil biological structure. PHK may be broadcast, used in furrow, or banded. From pre-plant soil preparation to post-harvest soil maintenance, Soil Biotics organic products are formulated to work together to provide a continuous beneficial growth environment to meet all of your organic agricultural needs. For product details, visit soilbiotics.com. This episode is also brought to you by Farming Magazine. Farming Magazine is a quarterly publication that has been bringing hope to the small family farm for over 23 years. Our writers are farmers and gardeners themselves. In sharing their stories and ideas, we want to bring encouragement to those who want to make a living off the land, or even just grow their own food, raise their own eggs, or dig in the soil. Farming Magazine will be at the Homestead Festival on June 7 and 8th in Columbia, Tennessee. We hope to see you there. To subscribe, visit www.farmingmagazine.net or call 330-674-1892.
You're listening to Rooted in Organic. I'm Mike Klein, and along with Brian Wood, we have the privilege of being joined by Rory Feek, who is an American country music singer and songwriter and the founder of the Homestead Festival in Columbia, Tennessee. Rory, thank you so much for joining us today. And can you give me a little bit of your background and your history?
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me today. Good to talk to you again. I don't think we've seen each other probably since the festival, or now and then there's another event or two that we'll cross paths on, or when I was up in Ohio, but it's good to talk to you. So my background is I do come from music. My father, I'm from Kansas originally, but not on a farm, more of a trailer park. My mother and father divorced early on, and so we grew up. I had 5 of us kids. We grew up with my mother, kind of going from town and town, state to state, just trying to make a living through my whole childhood. And my father, when I got to see him, he was an aspiring country singer. He worked on the railroad, but he really loved country music. So that's how I got into the music, the idea and dream of singing, and then later on writing music. So by the time I got out of high school, I joined the service. Everything I was always doing back then was trying to lead me to music. So I joined the service, which was, I'm still trying to figure out how to get to Nashville. Traveled around, but always played music. When I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years, got out of the service and played music in Dallas for four years or something, then moved to Nashville in 1995. Became a songwriter because that's really what I loved the most, and probably where I was most gifted, just with words and story. And then in 1998, had my first big success, and I had a big number one song on the radio, and some royalties came from that. So I went from being a single father with two kids. By then, they were like 11 and 13 years old. We were living in an apartment complex, to buying a rundown farmhouse built in 1878 and moving out here to the farm that I'm at right now. That's in May will be 25 years ago. And so my Homestead Festival, my homesteading journey, my farm journey really begins the moment I have success as a songwriter. I, for some reason, not on purpose, I just take the only money that I'd ever seen of any substance and decided, rather than buying a house in a cul-de-sac or whatever, something in town, I bought a rundown old farmhouse with some land, started living here. And so for years and years and years, I lived on a farm, but the farm wasn't really alive until, through the years, it started becoming alive. And I started becoming, our life became part of the farm, and the farm became part of our lives. And now it's actually what is driving everything. Music is just a small portion of our world compared to back then. Music was everything, and the farm was just the place I happened to choose to live at, which was nice, but it's different because now everything's rooted here. So that's kind of how I got here.
Can I ask what the song was? Your first big one?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If you get a chance, you'll have to look it up. It's called "Someone You Used to Know." It was a song that Colin Ray performed in 1998. It was my first song I ever had recorded. Me and a friend of mine named Tim Johnson wrote it, called "Someone You Used to Know." And it became not only a song on his album at that time. He was a big country artist in the late 90s. But it also became a single on the radio. Then it became a number one song by maybe Christmas time of 1998. And that kind of changed everything for me, because I went from making at the most $20,000 a year to all of a sudden I was going to make some substantial royalties. And so that song made it possible for me to buy this old farmhouse that was pretty run down, and I bought a number of acres with it. What's really special about that, you asked about the first song, is 24 years later, almost to the day, the Homestead Festival last year, which was the second annual, Colin Ray was the headliner. So we do classes, lectures all day long with Joel Salatin and Jill Winger and Temple Grant and all sorts of folks teaching, but in the evening we do music. So everybody winds down as the sunset listening to music. And last year's headliner was Colin Ray. So 24 years after I buy the farmhouse, he is performing with his band for 5,000 people in the field behind our farmhouse, singing the song that bought the farm, which was a pretty special full circle moment for me and my family.
That's incredible. What a great story.
Oh yeah, it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat, yeah.
Did your love of homesteading start once you bought the farm? And is that kind of where you started having a garden and things, or where did that start?
Well, my love of homesteading and home, I think it started in a couple places. Number one, it started in my love of story. So what happened, kind of the quickest version I could share with you, is I started having success as a songwriter. And so all I really wanted to do was to be successful, and I don't know, the fame or fortune or whatever those things the world tells you we should be aspiring for. And so I started writing some songs that became very well known, and some of them were really, really good stories and inspiring stories. But not long after I started having some success, like a lot of people in whatever industry they're in, you start to realize that that end goal is not very sustaining. And so I started to realize I didn't just want to write a great story in a song. I wanted to live a great story. So I started looking at life a little bit differently, and I started longing for something more than just money or success or fame or notoriety or those kind of things. So I started longing to be part of a great story, and I realized that, wanting to be famous and then finding a way to be blessed and have that come happen, that actually, after I got older, I started to realize that that really wasn't a very good story. It's kind of a very common story. I started meeting some farmers out here, and I remember one in particular, this old man named Joe Farlow, who lived, he's passed away now, but he would have lived he was married for 60 years to his wife and lived in a simple house and a farm and lived a very simple, very fulfilling life. And I just realized, wow, that's an incredible story. Mine of wanting, adulation and all these things, that didn't feel very like a much of a story to me. It started turning itself around and everything started getting inside out. And I just, as you get older, your values and your value systems change. And so part of my desire of wanting to be part of a great story started questioning what a good story was. And so that meant questioning your character and what you really wanted out of life and why you wanted those things. And so little by little, we started to look at kind of what we were doing in the life that we were leading. I married my wife Joey in 2002, and we ended up having a very successful career as artists ourselves. So we ended up traveling all over the world and selling lots of records and winning Grammy Awards and all that sort of stuff. And again, like that was incredible, like a whole new phase of having a music career, but also not very fulfilling. I kept finding myself in front of 15,000 people in some stadium on the stage with Zach Brown or Alan Jackson or whoever my heroes were, or the Grand Ole Opry, just going, what does any of this even matter? But as we kept putting roots into the soil here at our farm, we were doing things that I couldn't poke a hole in, growing our own food, participating in the life that we're living, slowing down and simplifying. Those things I didn't have to go, what does any of this matter? I could tell they mattered. So little by little, those things became more important and the other things became less important. By the time Joey and I had our own little girl, my older girls were grown. Boy, the whole world had shifted. I mean, you really started to see what mattered then. Having a child and the life you were providing for your child, and when I mentioned that it really kind of took off only 5 years ago, I say that because we'd had a garden and we'd raised chickens and, we'd been on the farm doing some farm stuff and doing some gardening and stuff. And my wife had passed away a number of years ago before that. But when COVID happened, and it was probably March of 2020, and we were sitting on my back porch and my nephews and nieces and my brother-in-laws and my sisters, they were all sitting on the porch with me. And all of a sudden it became clear to them and to me that this wasn't just a nice hobby. This wasn't a pretty pasture vision of a life. This actually has some real importance to it. And so from that moment, we took that moment to say, let's do this together and let's begin. And so we got some cows and we got some pigs and then we got some more meat birds. And then we just started heading down a more sustainable route. And that didn't take us too long. Within about year or 2 years, we were not only doing a lot of organic gardening and homesteading ourselves, but we had such a beautiful spot here to do it. We started hosting classes and conferences here. And then we became not just a place where we were doing it, but a place where other people could learn how to do it. And now it's been, a few more years. And again, like we have our big festival here, but we also have classes and conferences and workshops and all sorts of other things. All really just by accident. It just, not by accident. Accident for me, meaning I never planned on it. But God had it all planned for all of us. He's going to let us languish and stumble and fumble around until we start to realize what matters. And he's going to lead us to the land, and all that's going to lead us to him. And that's what he's done with me.
So, Rory, over that period of time, it seems to me, just hearing that awesome story there on the timeline of going through, your music career, and eventually 5 years ago winding up in a position to kind of involve agriculture more and teach others. There's a big window of time there that you're doing a career that you're getting some fulfillment out of, but seeing this other thing possibility and knowing that it's not quite all worth it. I guess I don't have a very clear question there, but how did you make it through that period of time, and just kind of knowing it wasn't meaningless by any means, but that there was something more out there?
Well, I think all of us have those periods of time. I would, if you look around, I mean, most of the people that we meet, and especially the people who are not participating in it, just the way the world has moved. I mean, almost everyone I meet, if you could get down to their heart of hearts, they would say, I'm stumbling, fumbling. I don't know what any of this even matters. They're lacking purpose in their lives, and their families and their lives, they trying to figure it all out. I don't think my story is anything unusual. I think so all those years, you just always feel like there's got to be something more, and you're looking for it, and sometimes you're finding inroads that are helping you get there, but it's not obvious. I think it's because of the marketing of the world and the culture we live in. It's not obvious that that less is actually more. It's not obvious that that taking responsibility for our kids' education, or for the food that we eat, or for entertaining ourselves, it's not obvious that those things are going to make our lives better or give us meaning and purpose. And so where I feel fortunate on mine is, like, there's a lot of languishing in there, but it's little by little finding my way. And I think everybody's doing that in one form or another. I don't know if everybody gets there, and I don't even know if there's a there. There's not necessarily a complete there. We're always going to be, at least this side of heaven, we're always going to be working on finding our way there. But I think that what's great about this life, the life that you guys podcast is based on, and rooted and organic, is there's a there. There's an awful lot of this that you can wake up in the morning and go lay your head down at night and go, I didn't waste this day. This was a good one. I'm thankful for this. And, I just want to be someone in a position to help people wherever it is, whatever it is, so that they're not wasting their lives.
Yeah, that's definitely very true, and also exactly the type of stories that we like to hear on our podcast is the people that are, and it really is amazing how agriculture in the many forms that it can take, but getting back to the land and simplifying things and seeing, the simple yet very, very complicated process of growing your own food, how that brings meaning. And, it's a beautiful process to see.
Yeah, and for me, that it's actually a funny thing because I'm not an expert in homesteading. I mean, last night so we have too many. We have 150 laying hens that follow behind our cows. We have 9 or 10 cows. But we have some in the schoolyard, in the barnyard at the school. We also had another 20, I don't know, 20 loose hens that are just wreaking havoc. We've got way too many, so we were giving a bunch away. So um, after our little Easter gathering and dinner last night, uh, right before I put Indy to bed after it got dark, we were out there with crates loading up chickens, which was super fun for our neighbors so that they could have some. And they came and got them this morning. And I love participating in all of this, but at the same time, my real passion and what God's given me a little bit of maybe, I don't know, I guess story, just something that's more helpful is mine's homesteading. I've just kind of come to realize homesteading, homemaking, homeschooling, home birth, end of life in your home, home church, all those things. Sorry, someone's mowing near me. I'm going to walk down here. I've kind of realized that homesteading is really just a portion of where my passion actually is. My passion is about the home. Like you mentioned that your podcast used to be called Back to the Roots or something like that. Our passion here at our farm is really a leading folks back to the home and encouraging people to rethink the role that home plays in their life. And I think that and homesteading plays a part of that. Homemaking classes, all of that plays a part of it. But for me, my passion is that. It's sort of the bigger picture of it. And I think the reason is these kind of things, this organic stuff, it also seems like it works in the same sort of way. My family, like I said, we kind of grew up in trailer parks. And now we have 100 acres here. My two sisters live on one side, on either side of me on the farm, and their families. And I have nieces and nephews that live here and kind of work here. And we're trying to figure out how to be a family. The culture is giving us no help whatsoever. If you watch Married with Children or Seinfeld, or, I mean, you name it, you don't really get much help trying to figure out how to be from the culture, how to be a functional, healthy family and even have a healthy home. If you didn't grow up in one, it's hard to figure out how do you create one. And so that's really what my passion is on my own. Turns out God he didn't just put it in my heart. It wasn't just, you want a farmhouse and you want to grow vegetables. I think he knew long before I did that, no, what you want is a home. You don't just want some vegetables that can be rooted, that can feed your family. You actually want to be rooted. You desperately need to be rooted, and so does your family. And it has to begin somewhere. And so that's really what we're doing. I'm on my own trying to figure out how do you manage all of those things together? How do you do this as a family together? How do you live in a community and spend your money in that community and not just give it all away to Amazon? How do you educate your children here and locally and all those kinds of things? So that's kind of my passion. And homemaking and homesteading and all of that plays into it. It's not the end goal. And even the festival, for me personally, is more of like a big celebration of the home.
You bring up a really good point there about the home, and nobody grows up in a perfect home. Every family,
Right.
and because there's human beings involved, there's going to be flaws. But even like I feel like I grew up in a great home, a great family. But once you have children of your own, you need to figure out how to make your house a home.
Yeah.
And it's going back to takes a village. And growing up in the community that I did, the older I get, the more I appreciate that. When you're young, it's kind of easy to look at community as somebody that's sticking their nose in your business. But as you get older, you see
Hmm.
the value. And it's the home is so important. And it can, you know, I probably wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have the marvelous family that I had. There were flaws,
Hmm.
but it definitely gave a good foundation. Um, but I
Yeah.
want to expand on that point a little bit. How do you? Because I think agriculture and especially animal agriculture, teaches so many basics to children because you've got to feed them. Because if you
Hmm.
don't feed them, there's going to be problems. Um, what can we do uh, to help our kids get into and understand the importance of like stewardship with the land and with animals? Is that just coming by leading, or are there other things that we can do?
Well, I mean, just all I know is what I'm trying to do on my own. I have our little girl's 10, and I'm trying to figure that out on my own. Just having her around us doing it all the time isn't necessarily enough. I'm always just like your father probably was for you. It's like giving them some responsibilities and some authority on their own to be able to do some things so that they can take some ownership in it. Yeah, I mean, I just think it's so important, and I'm learning as I go. I don't have the kind of a role model like you did with your dad. Uh, and so sometimes it's like, and I think there's a lot of people like me out there. It's like there is no patriarch, and you wake up one day and think, am I supposed to be something that I don't even know what exists? How do you become someone? And so they go to YouTube. People go to YouTube. They go to these podcasts just like this. That's why people like Jordan Peterson are just being overrun with folks trying to help figure out, how do I become something I've never seen before? And I'm 58 years old, and I have two grown daughters, and then I have a 10-year-old, and I'm trying to find that on my own and trying to participate in it as well as I can. The first thing is we can't teach something to our children that we haven't learned ourselves. If it isn't inside of me, it's not going to be inside of them. And so I think the first thing that I have to do is make sure that the character quality that I want to be, the stewardship, the animal husbandry, it has to be inside of me, not just the idea. They have to see it and they have to know it. Otherwise, I don't actually think there's any chance that they're going to pick it up and they're going to embrace it. So that's the first thing. And then we have to go out. It seems like we have to go out of our way to make it a part of our lives and to make it a part of their life. We've got a schoolhouse. So we have this one-room schoolhouse here at our farm, which is real neat. And it's been real special for Indiana, our little girl, over the last 5 years. But I also, we're kind of turning a corner. She's pulling up right now. We're turning a corner where we're opening that up to more children. And so this is kind of a funny, maybe, I don't know, it's a little pop culturist, but also not. Sometimes you have to meet people where they are. And so later this month, on the 19th, we begin these things called one-room schoolhouse experiences. And so the first one is called Little Schoolhouse on the Prairie Day. So we'll open that up. And so we sold out a couple of these classes, these courses, these experiences, where 20 kids can come in and spend the day at the schoolhouse. And it's not just learning. It's not just, dress up in prairie clothes, although they will be. It's not just that and, make a rag doll and write with a quill pen and on a small chalkboard. It's also Let's talk about one-room schoolhouses and how people used to go to school. Let's talk about farms and why they were important. And let's talk about, giving them some context for history and for education. And that's and animals, like it isn't just a petting zoo. It's like, why do we have these animals? And what's the work that it takes to take care of them? So we're trying to, on a personal level, incorporate that into our children's lives, but on a public level, see if we can make even the smallest difference so that it reframes the way that children look at school or farming or their food. And who knows what's going to come of it, but we're excited about being part of it.
One thing I'm wondering is, you're talking about making a lot of changes, and you mentioned earlier it kind of goes against what society is trying to sell us with a very object-driven life, and you're realizing that you want to simplify things. And one thing I'm wondering is, did you get pushback from your family that you lived a certain way before you decided to move to the farm, and then now you're trying to, you talked about bringing your sisters back as neighbors, and that I assume is different than the way that they were living as well. Did you get pushback from them in the way that you were thinking, and what type of life you were trying to, how you were trying to change it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I got pushback, and I get pushback all the time because they're not me, and the things that are important to me. I just took a year off the internet, and completely off the internet for a whole year, and not just my sisters, but every neighbor that I have, might have 5 televisions or more on all the walls of their houses, and when I came over, it's like we have to turn those off when me or Indiana came over. Those are kind of a pain in the butt for them, but at the same time, it's like that's where I am. I'm taking steps that they're not ready to take, but they're here. They're part of what we're doing, and they're beginning. And like one of my sisters is gardening a lot, a good bit, and she's beginning. She's in her place where she needs to be. And so I think one of the keys for me is we can be together and be at different places in our journey. Would I love for all of us to be exactly together? I'd love it, but we're not, and that's okay. And my way, I can't tell them that my way is the right way, because first off, I can't tell them that it is. It's the right way for me, and I'm on my own journey, but I think they need to be on their own journey too. And I think in general, the pushback. The only pushback comes from trying to push them to be where you are, and I don't think that, not just with your family. I'm not sure that works with anybody. I think to make it available for people to see and to watch you live and the choices that you make, and to maybe have conversations about things, and they get to think about, and then they make their own choices. I think that's maybe a good way to go. But the main thing is I just always have to remember, and they remember, like, we're in different places. What we want to, and all that stuff is not exactly the same, but we're closer than we've ever been. And it, it's hopeful, and it's really exciting. And I think they're finding more meaning and purpose in their life, not just by being on the farm, but by being together. And that, like, for me, being on the farm is one thing, and trying to raise animals and do all this stuff together is one thing, but it's just as important to, like, have a hard conversation you don't want to have. Say the thing that you're avoiding saying to each other in love. Like, those are just as big part of homesteading to me, like all, just trying to figure out how to be a healthy family, and, step by step, that's all part of it too.
I think the comment you made about meeting people where they are, I think that's the biggest step, because we all have our own journey that we're on, and you can't push your agenda. You have to meet people where they are, and generally speaking, there's way more common ground than there are differences, and start there.
Yeah, and it feels a lot like faith, where I can literally say, and I will say, man, everything changed with Christ in my life. And if I give it all to him and I trust him and I can die to myself, if I could just die to myself every day, it's just, there's something so beautiful. It's just peace and joy comes out of it, right? And but that doesn't, you can't tell, like, that's just my experience, and that's the journey that I'm on. It feels like you can't make them do that. They can make them go, okay, well, I watch and I see that maybe you have some peace and joy that I don't have, and maybe in time that helps them. And the same thing with like these homesteading and homemaking things is, if they see the joy that it brings your life, they might in turn say, wow, I'll try a little bit of that in my life. And I think it works, but not because you tell them they have to do it. They just see it in your life. They see the light. It really is light. Hopefully it's light, God's light in us through any of these things, the big and the small. They see the light and it draws them to the light. And what's great about the homesteading and all of these things that we're talking about, there's just so much good there. It's not that, oh, well, it's just a great way to make a lot of money or to grow a following or something like that. There are people that do that, but more than anything else, it's just a good way to build a life.
I think it's a wonderful way to build a life and build relationships. Relationships are so important, and if you can find other people who want to do the same thing, it just brings a sense of fulfillment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So as we are getting close to running out of time here, I do want to talk a little bit about the festival that's coming up
Yes,
on June 7th and 8th, I believe.
mm-hmm.
Are those dates right? I
Yes,
think
sir,
so.
they are. June 7th and 8th
June
here in
7th and 8th.
Columbia, Tennessee.
Hmm. And Brian and I will be there with the podcast and hoping to get some interesting conversations there. But is there something about the festival that is kind of sticking out to you this year? Certain speakers or educators or music that is there that you would like to talk about?
Well, Joel Salatin, I really like, he says it this way, our festival uniquely is like it's like homestead evangelism, meaning, so that's one of the reasons we do music. So we have, gosh, who else do we have? We have Michael Martin Murphy, who most people know him for Wildfire, the song Wildfire, and lots and lots of other hit songs. We have the Bellamy Brothers and John Anderson, who sings Swingin' and Cinnamon Old Wind, and a number of other artists. So in the evening time, we do music, partly so that we can wind down with music and just really enjoy a special time together at the end of the learning. But also there are people who come out only for the music. And even though they only come for the music, they might discover, wow, I've never tried to make sourdough bread before. That would be neat. Or, oh, these baby chicks are so cute. Maybe we'll get a few. Or I want to try and grow something on my own. One of the things that we try and do is bring in some folks that you wouldn't normally think about in the homesteading world. So some of that's singers or entertainers, and some of that is like Michael Paulin is one of our main speakers this year. He's coming in and doing a Q&A with Joel Salatin. And Michael is famous for, he's not a homesteader. He doesn't even speak about homesteading, but he speaks about food. And he thinks about the food system and farming, but from a different viewpoint. He's very, very, very loved and read. But for him to come into a homestead festival is kind of an unusual thing. He's not going to teach you how to do rotational grazing. but what he has to say, I think, is really important. And so one of the things that I would say about our festival is that we want to meet you where you are. Even if that place is not interested in homemaking, homesteading at all, you just want to have a nice family afternoon with, outside, that there's going to be something there for everybody. And so that's one of the things I would say about our event, is that although it is homestead centric, it's really just about the home and family. And so we're there's something for everybody here. The kids are going to have a ball. If you want to learn more about gardening or growing or raising animals, you're going to have the opportunity for that. If you want to just begin, you don't know anything whatsoever, it's a good place to begin too.
I did see that when we were there 2 years ago. There are things there for every level, from the person not even interested in growing their own food and they're just there to the music or for the music, to the very serious person about growing their own food. There is something there for everyone.
Yes, sir.
Well, I am really looking forward to being down there. Hopefully to get a couple of episodes recorded while we're down there with the interesting people that you have coming to the festival. So, Rory, I want to thank you so much for taking the time with us today to tell us your story. And I would encourage people to come to the Homestead Festival if they have an interest in learning more. The website is hardisonmill.com/the Homestead Festival. You can buy tickets and the whole lineup is on there. So, Rory, thank you so much for taking the time with us today.
Thank you both for talking to me and inviting me on the podcast. I look forward to seeing you all in June.